Hey everyone, this is Randy from BibleBuyingGuide.com. Today I'm taking a look at the Humble Lamb Lion in black goat skin with 4-edge design in yellow ribbons. Meridian goat skin. Archaic KJV. Let's take a look. Comes in this thick box, 2-piece box. Really nice, elegant box. Wrapped in the plastic with a little card. Alright, so we have a goat skin cover with a goat skin liner. And we have perimeter stitching, 4 hubs with the Word of God printed horizontally so that it's upright when it sits down. Similar to the MacArthur Study Bible from Thomas Nelson. And then the liner has Lion, Authorized KJV, and then the Humble Lamb logo down here at the bottom, with a gilt line and then edge line liner. The paper for the edge line liner is glued all the way up. That does make it a little stiff there, but at the same time it doesn't get in the way. The tab isn't overly stiff, so this does stay open to any page. There's the yellow ribbons and then yellow and black head tail bands. These are double-sided satin. It's not overly floppy. It's a flexible cover, but it's a little stiffer than a lot of the other covers that I've seen. So it's not too floppy. You can hold it open easy enough. There's the 4-edge art. I love that 4-edge art. I chose this Bible just because of the artwork on the 4-edge. I love that. Beautiful. I'd like to see that done more often. And let's see what we got here. 36 GSM European paper. It's kind of an off-white color, highly opaque, easy to turn. This is made in China, using 11-point Milo serif. I find that paper easy to turn. It does feel like a little bit of coating on it, maybe a semi-coating, but it's not sticky or nothing like that. It's a little bit rough, so it's easy to grab and turn. Can turn that easy. And then let's see how it sits open. We have a decorative drop cap, and you can see that in the extra material like we have about this Bible. And then we have the epistle dedicatory, and then translators to the reader. It does stay open fairly well. Then information about how to use the KJV line, and then we get into our text. All right, 11-point Milo. It's about a medium darkness. I would like to see it a little bit darker. I think darker would be easier to read and easier to preach from, especially when you have some of the artwork. There's some pages in here with drawings on them. And that does show up a little bit, especially when you're preaching. That's when I mostly noticed it, when I was preaching from this. That's the artwork. So we have about 8 words per line, verse by verse. All the highlights are in blue. So chapter number, which on the same line we have the section heading. And then we have other section headings throughout. And then we have Pilcrow for the paragraph markers. And then a line separating the text from the references and definitions. Sometimes it's hard to tell the blue from the black. Words of Christ are also in blue, and that has the same issue. It's a little bit hard to tell the difference. The references, even though they're in the footer, I find these to be the easiest to find than any Bible that I've used with references in the footer, because they're in columns. And every column, if it starts a new chapter, it has that chapter number above that column. For example, right here. And so if there's more than one chapter on a page, we'll see multiple chapters on there. Let me see if I can find a few. Trying to find a few at random. We'll find them. We will find them. And then in the very footer, in the very bottom, we have definitions of archaic words. Now, these are not in columns. These are just straight across. I find the references easy to find, but I don't necessarily find the footnotes as easy to find. I do like that they're separate from the references. That does help. But you also still need to read across and find. And when you have a lot of definitions, it's kind of hard to find them quick. Usually, when I'm looking for something fast, it's when I'm behind the pulpit and I need to spot it really quick. I actually need to find the definitions faster than I need to find the references. I rarely use extra references behind the pulpit. However, I did last night, and I had no issues finding them, except for one thing. You see the reference keys? Let me see if I can zoom that in. We have the chapter or the verse number, and then next to that is a reference key, which is a superscript. Same for the footnotes, superscript. I can't hardly see that. Those are so small they're not usable to me. I would like to see those larger. I'd also like to see a little bit darker font, but it would have an issue with opacity if you did. The reason is because it is line match, which does improve the show through, but improve the amount of show through. But when you have a large picture or large artwork on the other side of the page, it makes the paper gray. And if this was a little bit darker, it might be easier to read. I think it'd be easier to read either way. See, that's not even on the back side of that page. That's on the next page. Here's on the back side of that page. It might not show up so well on the camera, but I do find that difficult to preach from. I didn't find this difficult to preach from, but I did find it difficult to preach from when artwork is on the other side of the page. So overall, it doesn't bother me that it's not as dark as others. It could be darker, but it's not a deal breaker. I would like to see a little bit wider margin on the outside. It has an extra wide margin on the inside. We never lose the text in the gutter. There's enough margin that text is brought out, and that is very helpful. I like that a lot. But we have a smaller outer margin because of that. Let's get to the words of Christ in blue. I'm not sure if you can see that too well on the camera. It's kind of hard to distinguish the blue from the black. You have to have really good lighting. There is a little bit of print variation, so some pages the blue stands out a little bit more than others. And there's one of the darker pages because of the image or artwork on the other side. I love the artwork. I am a fan of artwork. You have to have the right opacity to make it work. Don't know how many references it's got, but it's got a lot. There are a lot in there. The definitions are from authoritative dictionaries. They're from Strong's Greek and Hebrew dictionaries. They're from Webster's. And then we have a concordance, and this concordance rocks. A little bit small of a font, but good concordance. Check this out. Every word has a definition. Every entry. So if you're looking for the definition of a word, you can look up in the concordance, and there it is. Let's see how many references it has for God. Yeah, this paper is easy to turn. No glare under direct light. So here's God starting there. All the way there. Zoom out just a hair. Then in the very back we have brand new maps drawn by Humble Lamb. These are interesting because they have actual degrees. So you can literally use this for navigation. They're on the thick glossy pages, and they have lots of red, green, blue, yellow, the earth tone colors. Topography, distance, routes, events, dates, some scripture references. Smithsonian. Let's take a look at the size and weight. About 6 3/8 by 9 3/4 by 1 3/4, and let's weigh. 2 pounds 15.5 ounces. So let's do a few comparisons. First, I want to compare it to the new Schuyler Canterbury, since it does take design cues from the Canterbury. This is the new edition, which is 28 GSM. This is a higher quality paper. There's how the leather compares. And here's how the text compares. So now if we compare Psalms, you're going to see single column. So we'll go to something else. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and go to the New Testament and compare blue letter to red letter. Both have decorative drop caps, but the design is a little different on them. These are more decorative, but they're larger. These are more minimal. It's a little bit smaller, not as much decoration, but they do stand out really well. So there's the difference in darkness of the fonts in the blue letter and the red letter. Both have references in the footer, but I do find those in the Humble Lamb a little bit easier to use. The Canterbury does not have footnotes of any kind, but it does have a glossary in the back. So it does have a glossary of archaic words. Next is the Thomas Nelson Premier Collection. I'm comparing them because both are made in China and both are goatskin and both use the same or very similar European paper. Here is their thickness difference. This one is a little thicker, this one's a little taller. And then here is our difference in print quality. Both have definitions on the page. The Thomas Nelson being center column is a little bit easier to find quick, easier to see. These are easier to see than those. Here's how the print compares. Paper is about the same. Thomas Nelson maybe have a little bit of, might have a slight more coating on it, but other than that, they feel very similar. Another Thomas Nelson I'm going to compare to is the Preaching Bible, and you'll see why. It also has definitions in the footer, and that's what I want to compare to. And it's also has blue highlights. Here's how they compare. I do find the definitions in the Humble Lamb a little bit easier to find because they're separate from the references, but they're harder to identify which goes where. And there's the size of the font, and there's the darkness differences. And because we're in the same price range, I also want to compare to the Turquoise from Cambridge. There's our size difference. Goat skin, that's how they look. The goat skin on the Cambridge is a little bit more pebbly, a little deeper grain. This also uses the 28 GSM Indopaque that we would find in the Canterbury. And then there's our difference in size and darkness. The Turquoise does not include definitions of any kind, but it does have the translator's footnotes. And the last one is the Humble Lamb New King James. Just to show some design differences, they've made some major changes on the branding and the materials. The materials are completely different. This one is an extremely soft leather, extremely flexible. This one's a thicker leather. Not so much of a deep grain, but it does feel more durable. This feels like a lot higher quality paper than the New King James. And there's how they compare. I really wanted them to produce the KJV in the New King James layout because there's not a lot of King James in a poetic setting. The reason for that is because of verse by verse is easier for study and easier to follow along. And it is the traditional design. It's hard to change something you're used to. That's how they compare. All right, so final thoughts. It feels like a quality Bible. The leather feels excellent. The paper feels excellent. I would like the font a little darker. I would like the reference and footnote keys to be larger. I would like the blue to be a little bit more prominent, be easier to spot quickly. I can actually look at a page and not know there's blue there. It does stand out a little bit in some pages, but not so much in others. I would like to reduce the show through on pages with artwork. The artwork is from Gustave Doré, which I love. I love Gustave Doré's work. But other than that, and I love the concordance with the definitions. I love the space here. I would like to see a little bit wider space there. Other than that, it's an excellent Bible. I like it a lot. Humble Lamb did provide this in exchange for an honest review. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll place some links in the notes where you can make a purchase, where you can see the written review at BibleBuyingGuide.com with more detail. Thanks for watching.